So yesterday, some setbacks. Unfortunately, I spent a lot of time on Saturday trying to get the serial protocol working between the microcontroller and the computer. Had some success. It's communicating back and forth. It establishes the connection and it maintains that connection. It'll also correct if it doesn't detect the connection is still active. So there's some good stuff there, but unfortunately I wasn't able to get it to where everything was communicating properly. One of the issues is the microcontroller code would send plain text and not just JSON, and so it was having trouble on the computer side parsing some of those responses correctly. So that was one of the challenges that I like. By the end of Saturday night, I was just like, I don't know that I'm going to make any more progress on this, or is it even worth continuing down this road and trying to understand this code, or is there a better approach? So I took a step back on Sunday and tried to kind of learn a few more things and kind of mentally retool. I focused on learning more about VS Code because it's the IDE that I'm using, and I think there's some more capabilities that I don't fully understand. I wanted to better understand MCP servers and some of the context capabilities of VS Code, and then just get exposure to other people using it. So I watched a ton of videos on it and tutorials and went through hours and hours of footage of people using VS Code and how they're using it and things like that. So got a lot of good exposure from that. And I feel much more confident using VS Code now. But I didn't really get to make much progress on the serial protocol, unfortunately, which is very frustrating because I like to keep moving forward. I think things come in waves. I was having a lot of success with the UI and the LVGL code. Then I've just kind of reached a point where getting it to that next level is kind of hanging me up. And I'm concerned that I've tried to put in too much, which is what I tend to do. I try to over-engineer things, at least for an initial beta product, to get a beta prototype working. I may have overcomplicated it. So I had some conversations with AI going back and forth, like, here's my limitations, here's how I'm feeling. It's overwhelming, but these things are working. So what would be a good approach? So it has suggested a hybrid approach, which I think is what I'm going to do, where I've got the code, some of it works, the code that AI built out that I've started to come to understand, and I do see why it was structured that way, and I do think it makes sense especially for long-term implementations. It'll be an extremely robust way of keeping that communication solid between the microcontroller and the computer. But to get to something usable where I can actually have a physical product and show it off, be like, hey, you press the buttons and it does the thing, it may be overcomplicated, at least for where I'm at with the timeline that I want to work in. So I think what I'm going to do is take the hybrid approach, which was suggested by the AI, and pick one capability and then build that out on my own, compare it to what had been previously built, and see if there's things that need to be added, see how it differs, and then just kind of go from there. So I think I'm going to do that. But I think one of the first things I need to do is I need to get the microcontroller code better organized. Right now, it's one large INO file. There's 2,000 lines of code in it. And so it works, which is awesome. But when it's getting edited and AI has to go through and refactor things, it takes quite a while now for it to go through all the code and restructure things. And then it'll do this weird thing where, especially Claude, I've noticed this with Claude, with this particular code that I'm using, where I'll have it try to update this one particular thing and it will go and add to that, but then it will delete hundreds of lines of code related to the UI that are perfectly fine and functioning. And I don't want that. It's deleting a capability. I'm going to try to figure out how to break that code down into smaller sections, separate it out. This way it has less code that it needs to look at, less code that it needs to edit. I can provide it specificity on this section of code needs to be evaluated and looked at for these capabilities. So that is something I think that I'm going to look at next. And then I'll work on trying to get the serial piece of that working. So I think what I'm going to do is start with my whole INO file and then just start working with it and be like, hey, I need to break this out. Here's one thing that I need to break out. Let's go do this first and then make sure it's working. And then let's go break this next thing out and make sure that it's working. One of the big wins from yesterday was better understanding how to apply context to the code for the AI. And so there's the .md files within .github, where you can actually provide it the context documents that you want it to have. So start with an overarching, high level, here's the structure, here's the business capabilities, what you're looking for. And then you can have other context documentation in there that you can reference or point to as the AI is building out the code. So I need to update my context documents because a lot of it is just thought dumps. to where I've just dictated into a document, like, here's everything that I'm thinking about product or customers or how I want to approach something or the business or the marketing ideas, whatever, the themes or the values of the company, things like that. And so I also went through yesterday, and I think it was a like 40 something page document that I had. And then I went through each section and then had AI like reorganize it in a way that was easy for AI to consume in the future as a context reference. And so it's cut that down to about 20 pages, maybe even down to 14 pages. And it's just much more structured out. And so like there were sections that were overlapping to where I would have like ideas and thoughts about the product or the software or the features in one section, and in another section I'd have basically overlapping or duplicate information as I was, thinking out at the time. And so it was able to extract some of those pieces, combine them, and then restructure and reorganize everything. So spent a lot of time doing that last night, and I think that's in a pretty good place. Now, one of the challenges that I'm finding with using AI to do all of this is, like, while it's great for helping write code and taking time away from that, and while it's amazing at helping me come up with content and marketing ideas and really like functioning as an executive team, it's generating a lot of documentation. And yes, I dictated everything that was in my head into these documents and then had AI use that as a reference for restructuring it. But at the end of the day, I've got these documents that I didn't write and I need to understand, because obviously that's what the AI is going to be using as reference for future development decisions and marketing decisions. And so now I've got, 40, 60 pages worth of documentation that the AI has produced based on my input and my detailed documentation, but I need to go through it now. So now I've got all this amazing documentation, I think, that is refactored, that's refined, that's organized really well. And so now I actually have to sit down and read through all of it and spend the time doing that, which is fine. Like, it just needs to happen on the front end. So, but it feels like a little bit of a setback because I'm not developing and moving the product forward. I'm taking kind of like a step out, going through making sure that the foundational structure documentation is right, which is worth it because, in 2-3 weeks, having higher quality input on the front end will give me better results in the long term. So that's another thing that I need to do today. So I think today is going to be getting reorganized for the week with the new documentation, the new reference material. And by the end of the day, I want to have the code at a place where I can really start hammering away at it and spend the rest of the week in a good place to build out the code and get these features and capabilities working for an initial like beta prototype version of the product. So that's what's one of the things that need to happen. On the VS Code side, I learned some cool things, learned more about MCP servers. There's some that I would like to add. It seems like it's still very early on in the how this is all being done and structured, but it's pretty cool how that works. So I've got some of those that I want to add. Added some plugins to VS Code that I found that I liked. There were a few that people had said worked really well, but after trying them, I decided not to use them. But some of the ones that I think I will be using is Prompt Extender. So that'll just take what I prompt it and expand on it. So it's an easy way to do that. And then I think it's Live Remote. It's a Microsoft extension that basically lets you use your VS Code on your main production system. And then from another computer running VS Code, you can basically tunnel into it and then edit all the code and work as if you're on your production system, just remotely from a tablet or a computer or something like that. So I think in the future that'll be helpful, especially if I'm traveling or want to go to a coffee shop or whatever for a day without having to take my whole setup with me. So that was cool. And then, of course, learning about the context documents and how those should be better applied within VS Code in the .github directory as the .md files versus me just creating a text file in my notes folder and then pointing it there. Maybe at the end of the day, it's not going to matter that much, but it seemed like the way they were talking about, and this was from the VS Code team, the way they were talking about these specialty files is that there was some additional utility to them or structure that it looks for. So I don't know, but I am going to try to get that set today as well and just have a good foundation for the rest of the week. Incorporation. So I finally got through reviewing the bylaws and the incorporation documents and gave the attorney the thumbs up, green light to go ahead and get those filed. So I'm pretty happy with where those are. I did get frustrated with Gemini, and this is concerning. So I was using AI to show me what the differences were between the original documents, which I had gone through, and the new documents, so I could just compare the changes and the updates, things that were different. And after I got done going through that, I wanted to understand, just from a like, hey AI, think like a business attorney for a Delaware C corporation. I wanted just general insight into, are there things within this document that should be there that I might need to consider? Is there stuff that's unusual within the document? Just additional awareness, any insight that I might be able to get from the AI. And Gemini went through it, and initially it gave me some good material and like stuff to start thinking about. And I'm reading through its output, and then it just deleted it all and said, I'm simply an LLM and I can't do this. I'm like, but you just did. And so I fought with it for a little while. And as I'm watching its thinking, it's stuck on some kind of like security filter or something that it must have hit. And it just refuses to provide any kind of legal advice. And it just keeps coming back to like, I can't provide legal advice. And I'm like, you just did. Like, give me this. And it wouldn't do it. So that was really disappointing. I switched over to Claude and threw it in there and didn't have any issues with Claude. Claude was extremely helpful. So hopefully Claude keeps that up and doesn't go the way that Google has in the past, where it starts censoring information that it's giving you, because that is one of my concerns with Gemini, because they have censored and filtered so heavily in the past that it may actually become problematic for me. Like it basically made itself useless in that context for me. So that was disappointing. Claude though came through, so that was good. And yeah, I think the documentation looks good, at least to get started. So that's gonna be awesome. And as far as like how to use the code going forward, because there's so much code already written on the Linux side, I think at least the conversation I had with AI was to start over, but keep the stuff that I already have, and then pick one thing and build that, and then compare it to what AI had previously built, and then just figure out which from that, like if I've got what I need, how well does it work? How well does it work compared to what I had before? And then I'm kind of learning along the way in a little bit more structured, processed way, but I still have the original code. So yeah, so in a couple of days, I should know really what direction to go. It's just one of those weeks, I think, where I'm still learning and I'm still figuring this out and how to integrate this, but I really want AI to become, I really want to see how much I could do with the AI and have that be an integral part of the business, where like in the future, I do believe that especially small businesses, AI is going to be critical in operations, and from marketing to strategy to writing the code to structuring things. And I want to build those systems and processes now so that it's more valuable, especially for when thinking about acquisitions or getting acquired in the future, companies that will want to bring on systems and processes that are working, where AI is integrated into basically this new mode of operations. I want to be a company that is already set up and doing that, so that it's something that could be absorbed, where my processes that are demonstrated to be successful, hopefully, are something that they would want to acquire, and then include that, not just in addition to the technical products and services that the company will provide, but also the operational structure of the company. So that's something else that I want to make sure that I stay focused on. So that's what I've got from this weekend, and really kind of going forward today and kicking off the week. So let's do it. See where we end up. See ya.